Welcome back, once again adventurers, to Let's Play Steins. In the last episode, Rintaro Okabe was busy managing the receptionist's area of the UPX venue for the seminars that are going on, that are being run by the Viktor Chondria University, when he encountered a woman who at first glance appeared to be a little girl, but was in fact a 21-year-old by the name of Maho Hiajo, and I have pronounced that right, Maho Hiajo of Viktor Chondria, who is a assistant and interpreter of none other than Professor Alexis Leskinin, also of the same university. Unfortunately, much to Rintaro's dread, a certain individual showed up that he never thought he'd ever see again in this particular world line. That woman is Arc Rewrite magazine writer and text demon extraordinaire Moeka Kiryu. Originally a CERN rounder on the Alpha world line, we don't quite know her role in the Beta world line, but she did seem keen on interviewing Leskinen. Unfortunately, Rintaro's current anxiety disorder threatened to overwhelm him completely. But the two of them have left, and we also had a message from our good old friend Mayushi. My eyes wander to one of the pamphlets. Let's see what they're actually handing out. Nakabachi theory and the genealogy of pseudoscience. Ugh. Thought I'd never see the name Nakabachi ever again, and I hoped I wouldn't. This pamphlet was for Professor Izaki's seminar. Nakabachi theory. The paper he'd announced in Russia. That paper held the key to creating a real time machine. Unfortunately, the thing is, he may have published that paper, but he wasn't responsible for its creation. That honor goes to his now deceased daughter, Kurisu Makise. I don't think I should ever refer to Nakabachi as Souichi Makise again. He is not deserving to be called Kurisu's father. On that day, the 28th of July, Nakabachi had stolen the paper from Kurisu, his own daughter, and left the country with it and defected to Russia. I knew that. Only Nakabachi and I knew that. I flipped through the pamphlet. It was a brief introduction to the many forms of pseudoscience and fake scientific discoveries that had emerged since the start of the 20th century. On its own, it did make for interesting reading, and at the end of the pamphlet, Nakabachi theory was introduced as nothing more than another entry in that long list of fakes. So Dr. Nakabashi's time machine theory had been completely ignored by the academic world after all. Once again, here's the laughing stock of the scientific community. All the glory, fame, and power he'd wanted so badly that he was willing to murder his own daughter. He didn't get a cent of it. And I'd heard rumors that after the announcement, he'd been imprisoned in a Russian lab. To make it even funnier, he thought he was getting VIP treatment. Well, he sought asylum, and unfortunately, he had put himself in the worst possible position. I would laugh at how his pride and hubris have led to his downfall. Unfortunately, that same pride and hubris led to the death of someone we loved. For a short time, there were essays and interviews in bogus academic journals. Even there, it was obvious that it had all gone to his head. Indeed, Nakabachi was a complete fraud. A decent physicist, to be sure, but a two-bit scientist, if ever there was one. His daughter, Kurisu Makise, was the genuine genius prodigy of her age. Her theory on neuroscience and brain mapping was published when she was 17 and earned her much acclaim in the scientific community, the very acclaim that drove her father to absolute jealousy. The ironic thing is that Nakabachi theory was completely correct and completely revolutionary, seeing as how it was taken from Kurisu. The Russian government was worried about it leaking out, and the SVR was doing everything it could to keep it under wraps. Believe it or not, I actually do know the SVR, what the SVR is, but for those of you who don't, allow me to explain. The Service of the External Reconnaissance of the Russian Federation, aka SVR. SVR is basically the Russian version of that name. But I don't know it, and it's not given here. Russia's external intelligence agency. Its HQ is in Yasinovo in southern Moscow. After the old Soviet Committee for State Security KGB was disbanded, the new SVR was modeled after the KGB's first directorate. I think the similarity between these two organizations is too close for my comfort, but I digress. There are other intelligence agencies in Russia as well, such as the Main Intelligence Directorate, the GRU, and the Federal Security Service, FSB. Each of them has their own territory and specialization. Currently, Russia is none of our concern, except for the fact that, according to Suzuhamane, Nakabachi's paper is basically the cause of just a little something known as World War III, a nuclear war and a time travel war fought between the United States of America, the Russian Federation, and the European Union. But under the surface, there was a full-scale information war beginning over the paper. The time traveler from 2036, John Titor, had told me so, which meant it had to be true. In November 2000, a man appeared on an American message board claiming to be a time traveler from the year 2036. This became an internet phenomenon that inspired a storm of questions and debate. The man called himself John Titor and published partial pictures of the manual for his time machine, as well as an explanation for how it operated. He also made clear what would happen in the near future, how interfering with the timeline worked, the principle behind the multiverse and parallel worlds, multiverse theory, as well as timelines and world lines. Then, 4 months after his appearance, he left a final message saying that he'd completed his mission and would be returning to his world of 2036. Then he vanished for good. I should probably mention that in this world line, that John Titor that we've just read about, we've already met him, or her rather. Was World War III really going to happen? There's no point in thinking about it now. But, yes, I did say that the John Titor of this world line is in fact her, and that we've already met her before, because John Titor in this world line is none other than Suzuha Mane, who we saw in the very first episode of Steins Gate Zero. But Rintaro isn't concerned about World War III right now. Just a little more before the drugs kicked in. I closed my eyes. Calm thyself, Rintaro Okabe. Several hours later, the convention was going well. After Professor Izaki's seminar, most of the students from our university went home, but I killed some time and came back. I wanted to hear the Viktor Chondria lecture. I headed to the hall with plenty of time to spare and saw Maho Hiajo coming from the staff room. Hail and well met. She was with a very tall foreigner. I assume that this is the vaunted Alexis Leskinin, professor of Viktor Chondria. It didn't seem like an American name, but maybe he was an immigrant like Kurisu, or perhaps descended from Japanese heritage. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but the looks on their faces were so serious that I couldn't help but listen. Since they were both speaking in English, I could barely make out any of it, but I could tell from their voices that it wasn't a pleasant chat. And the expressions on their faces are certainly serious. Wait, did I just hear the word Makise? I hated the fact that I couldn't speak English. Unfortunately, Kurisu could. If I'd known this was going to happen, I would have gone to an English school. Unfortunately, we didn't. And as for using a email or time leap to correct that mistake, 2 words: forget it. The two of them walked by into the waiting room for lectures. It was located right next to the UBX Theatre. I put together the few fragments I was able to understand. Fire at Kurisu's house. Miss Makise is all right. Robbery. The police called off the investigation. Why was the FBI there? It doesn't make sense. So, someone tried to burn down Kurisu's mother's house, and Kurisu's mother lives in America. And for those of you who don't know what the FBI is, you honestly should. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, an American police organization. It is attached to the Department of Justice and handles crimes that occur on American soil. There are approximately 30,000 people who work for the FBI. When crimes take place involving a wide area in multiple states, the FBI investigates under federal law. But why would an arsonist want to destroy the house of Mrs. Makise? I think that's what they were saying. Could it possibly have anything to do with Nakabachi? Kurisu's estranged father, who is now languishing in a Russian prison, or perhaps the late Kurisu Makise herself. Do they mean where she lived in America? Her mother should still be living there. Is that where the fire was? It certainly seems like that. And then words like robbery and the investigation was called off. I really want to know more. I stood there and worried until it was time for the lecture to begin. With nothing to do, I went inside the theatre. Let's see what this artificial intelligence lecture is all about. I could tell earlier by looking at the sides of the crowds going inside, but and I believe that I can remove the text by, I know. And never mind that. It was a very high energy crowd. I'm just going to stop for the moment and actually I don't think I can don't think I can check the just ignore that. Don't think I could see the I thought I could get rid of the text with the shift button or the any button, but I guess not. I can't get rid of the dialogue to show you the screen, so I won't do that. Never mind. The atmosphere was clearly different from Azaki's seminar, which was mostly students there for credit. This appears to be more older attendees, and there are quite a lot of them. And looking at this is actually a pretty elaborate seminar room, if I do say so myself. The place was nearly full with a crowd of scientists and people who wanted to learn about cutting-edge technology. Viktor Chondria's researchers had published a slate of papers in Science recently, and gotten a lot of media attention. Maybe that was why. Maybe it was. Were there any empty seats? Few in the back, but only probably about half a dozen. I found a single open seat at the edge. Don't know why that said that twice. But then when I looked who was sitting next to it, I moaned. Who could it possibly be? But Moeka Kiryu, who we should actually have no that is to say, we haven't really formally been introduced yet, and we probably shouldn't get acquainted to her in the slightest. You again. Moeka Kiryu was there. She was speaking to no one, just typing endlessly into her phone. I'd once named her Shining Finger because of her incredible typing speed, and she was as fast as ever. Fastest texts in the West. Who was she talking to? Must clearly be talking to someone. I didn't even want to imagine. Probably best to leave her alone. I quickly turned away and looked for another seat. Dr. Leskinen reached the podium almost the exact instant I sat down. That was cutting it a bit close. There was a huge wave of applause. But when they saw the tiny little girl come up next to him, the applause faded into confused murmurs. Maho must have expected this. Her expression didn't change in the slightest as she stood next to the professor. In fact, when she took the microphone from him and looked around the theater, she looked like she belonged there on the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen.
First, Dr. Leskinin began to speak in English. When he made eye contact with Maho, she began to interpret in Japanese.
Thank you for attending this seminar.
皆さん、本日は私のセミナーに集まってくださって感謝します。
Now, interestingly enough, this was actually a rather curious thing for the Funimation dub to run into, because in the visual novel and the Japanese sub of Steins Gate Zero, since everyone speaks in Japanese, because this is Japan after all, everyone speaks in Japanese, but we have subtitles to translate into English. Leskinen is speaking in English while Maho is speaking in Japanese to the audience. Translating. This, however, was a rather unique problem as far as the Funimation dub was concerned, because it was actually the first time that they'd run into us, because in most English dubs of Japanese anime, even though all the characters are Japanese and have Japanese ethnicity, they are basically, everyone is speaking in English. So it's basically assumed that if you use your imagination, they're speaking in Japanese, but some sort of magical translation magic is allowing you to hear them in English. Which made sense in the Japanese sub, but it was the first time that a dub had kind of run into this problem. So when the Funimation dub version of Steins Gate Zero, Leskinen still spoke in English, but surprisingly, for the first few moments of his seminar, Maho actually speaks in Japanese, which is the first time that's ever happened. Eventually, though, after a while, she does switch back into English, because the Funimation dub is an English dub, but that was a very curious happenstance that happened, and I really liked that, the way that they handled.
ビクトル・コンドリア大学脳科学研究所のアレクシス・レスキネンです。専門は脳信号処理システムおよび人工知能理論になります。
And I don't know about you there, but it seemed to me like Leskinen was doing his best Stephen Hawking impression. By that I mean his artificial voice, not his actual British voice, which he could no longer use due to his advanced physical deterioration, hence the artificial voice. But summarizing, Leskinen is basically here to explain artificial intelligence.
そして私は助手のヒアジョウ真帆です。同じく脳科学研究所で教授の指導に沿って研究をしています。よろしく。
Essentially, Maho is Leskinen's interpreter. The audience started murmuring again. No, she's not a little girl, she's not a teenager. She is a 21-year-old of somewhat short stature. That was the same way I responded when I first met her. Well, that'll happen, yeah. Probably shouldn't bring that up in front of Maho.
Now, without further ado, I'd like to
では早速ですが、私たちの最先端研究の一端をご紹介します。テーマは人工知能革命としましたが、これからデモンストレーションするシステムはおそらく皆さんの想像を超えたものではないかと思っています。
Yeah, it should go without saying that English to Japanese, or any translating from one language to another, not entirely precise, because certain languages often don't have certain vernacular in other languages and vice versa. But just what is artificial intelligence? Often shortened to AI, there have been many different definitions for this term since its creation. For example, some use it to refer to control systems with self-directed learning capability, while others use it to refer to programs whose thought routines mirror humans artificially. The Artificial Intelligence Revolution. Dr. Leskinen stood in front of the laptop that had been placed on the podium and started to type.
このパソコンですが、研究所のスーパーコンピューターの一つと接続されています。
So apparently they have supercomputers stationed at the Viktor Chondria lab
まだプロジェクターには映さないで。
One of the staffers was about to display the laptop screen on the front projector. Some kind of important program must have been booting up because Maho Hiajo stopped them.
Sorry, this is all still in development.
すみません、まだ開発途中なんです。非常に美的センスのないプログラムが画面いっぱいに溢れ返っています。
Honestly, I'm a little embarrassed
こんなチープなプログラムを見られるのは恥ずかしい。裸を見られるよりもね。
we don't... Sorry, had to cough, had a bit of a coughing fit there, so I had to turn the microphone off briefly. But I definitely don't... yeah, I know for a fact that nobody here wants to see Alexis Leskinin naked. As for Maho Hyajo, on the other hand, I would probably walk out of the theater if she did that.
この中にエンジニアの方がいるなら理解していただけますよね。
Some of the audience got the professor's joke and laughed.
Anyway, while this finishes building up,
起動するまでの間、このシステム全体の概略を説明しましょう。
So whatever program that they're setting up is going to take some time. There was another projector in the center of the stage. A diagram appeared on its screen. And at the top of the diagram was a Japanese translation for the general audience. An analysis of neural pulse signals relating to memories stored in the temporal lobe. What is the temporal lobe? Oh, first of all, there's also nerve pulse. An electrical signal that travels through a human's nerve cells. It's used to quickly spread information between cells. And the temporal cortex is a part of the cerebrum located at the side of the brain. It controls memory, judgment, emotional restraint, hearing, and more. It's also used for accessing the hippocampus, which is on the edge of the cerebrum. I think I knew a certain tsundere assistant who seemed very overly eager and in fact had somewhat of a vicarious joy at threatening to cut open our hippocampus and stick electrodes in it just to see what would happen. Unfortunately, she is not alive in this world line. Bah humbug. We're obviously talking about Kurisu Makise, of course. Formerly known as Christina, although not on this world line. Speaking of which, I know that title well. In fact, I was sure I could never forget it. It was the title of an essay written by a 17-year-old genius girl and published in Science. An essay that completely overshadowed her father's budding scientific ambition and left it completely in the dust. She had completely analyzed the nerve impulse patterns that govern human memory and used that to digitize the memories themselves into data. And in fact, it was this very essay that was brought to our attention by our good friend Daru, which is why we know the name Kurisu Makise in the first place. And she had used her knowledge and information to invent the time leap machine converted from the phone wave TBA right in front of my eyes. Basically, the time leap machine allowed us to send our memories the very memories of ourselves back in time. Unfortunately, there was a drawback to the time leap machine. We could only leap back in time all the way back to the 11th of August, and we needed to have a cell phone on at all times. Otherwise they could have been complicated. Though none of that had actually happened anymore on this world line.
サイエンス誌に掲載されたのでご存知の方もいるでしょう。
Indeed, I'm pretty sure that the audience is entirely familiar with Kurisu's paper.
It was proposed by a very talented Japanese
こ
member
れ
of
は
our team.
私たちのチームにいた天才的な日本人研究者によって提唱され完成されたものです。
Prodigy is probably the word I would use.
Human memories are stored in the
人
several
間の
copies,
記憶は
particularly in the
大脳皮
temporal
質
lobe, a little
とり
like
わけ
flash memory.
側頭葉に記録されます。いわゆるフラッシュメモリみたいなもの。
So basically like a USB or something like that. In a way, cerebral cortex. The grey-coloured external layer of the human brain. It is only a few millimeters thick, but consists of over 10 billion neurons in countless layers. The central core governing sensation, movement, and mental activity. Different parts handle different functions. We are definitely knowing a hell of a lot more about neuroscience, which is very interesting.
The part of the temporal lobe that controls the lighting
そ
and
のメ
reading
モリ
of
に
memories
記憶を
is
書き
a
込んだり
hippocampal
読み
gyrus.
出したりするのが側頭葉にある海馬傍回という部位になります。
The hippocampal gyrus is found on the outside edge of the hippocampus, Kurisu's favorite part of the brain. It is a part of the brain that controls memories and spatial recognition. It is responsible for spatial processing, as well as the sensation of being familiar with the situational place. It plays an important role in memory encoding and retrieval. The more you know. Leskinen pointed to the diagrams of the brain and hippocampus on the side of the screen.
The brain works by transmitting
脳
electrical
は
signals between cells
ニューロンと
called
呼ばれる
neurons.
細胞の間を電気信号が伝わっていくことで働いています。
And now we're on the subject of neurons, also known as nerve cells. Cells specialized in information processing. Electrical pulses flow through these cells to share various types of information, making them a form of transmission mechanism. Who says that Let's Plays in video games aren't educational? Whoever said that was wrong.
What we call memories are just
記憶
those
というのも
electrical signals and
実
they
は
are
こう
controlled
い
by
っ
the
た電気
pamplet
信号の
gyrus.
伝わりの一つなのです。その働きを制御しているのが海馬傍回と言ってもいいでしょう。
So that is the reality of what memories are in scientific terms, the transmission of these electrical neurons, and they are controlled by the hippocampal gyrus.
In other words, electrical signals
つまり
through the pamplet
電気信号
gyrus
が
is
海馬
previous
傍回
memories.
を出入りすることで記憶は作られていくんですね。
That was a foundation for Kurisu Makise.
そこでマキセ・クリスはこの論文を書いた日本人研究者です。
It seems that Maho Hyajo is rather hesitant to utter the name Kurisu Makise. I think that she was almost certainly close to Kurisu, and for somewhat different reasons than Rintaro Okabe, is clearly distraught by her premature demise.
And excuse me, I mean, Ms. Makise, one of our research
マ
assistants.
キセ研究員は考えました。
You see here, electrical signals, signal patterns, the cerebral cortex.
海馬傍回を通る電気信号が電気信号のパターンと大脳皮質の
Electrical signal patterns the cerebral cortex. Maho had started to have trouble with her interpreting. She was getting confused. No matter how good you were with languages, interpreting for a long period of time had to be quite difficult. I'd once read an article on the internet that said even a professional can't do it for more than 20 minutes. International conferences and live broadcasts from overseas were actually handled by a team of people switching off. Or maybe... Was she having trouble because Kurisu's name came up? I would say that that is definitely the case. Dr. Leskinen saw that she was having trouble and cut himself off.
すみません。
You have nothing to apologize about, Maho. I'm sure that the subject of Kurisu Makise is a very delicate one.
Ms. Makise, focus on the patterns entering
マキセ
and
研
exiting
究員
the
は
parahypocampo gyros.
海馬傍回を出入りする電気信号のパターンに着目しました。
So she was basically focused on the activity of neurons going in and out of the hippocampal gyrus.
By analyzing those patterns, she was
そ
able
の
to
パターン
validate
が
which memories in the
大脳
cerebral
皮質
cortex
の
they
ど
corresponded
の
to.
記憶と対応しているのか解析を行って完全なデータを得たのです。
So in other words, she was able to map out how memories worked in the brain.
This data allows her to take the analog memory
これによって
signals and
記憶という曖昧でアナログなものを
electrical signal patterns,
電気
which
信
form
号
the
の
basis
パ
of
ターンの
this
組み合わせというデジタルなものに変換する基礎理論が確立されたのです。
And basically allowed her to turn the electrical signals of memories into actual digital data.
Ms. Makise published her research in several
これ
journals.
がサイエンス誌に掲載された彼女の論文です。
A very bold, revolutionary paper, if I say so myself.
And now, based on her theory, our
そ
team
して
has
現
developed
在
a system for storing
私
human
たちの
memories
チ
as
ームは
digital data.
その理論をもとに人間の記憶をデジタルデータとして取得するシステムを開発しています。
A wave of whispers swept across the theater. That same memory data conversion that Kurisu used to actually implement her time leap machine.
In other words,
それはすなわち
this system allows human memories to be stored
人
and
間
accessed
の
on
記憶を
computers.
コンピューターに保存しそれを活用するシステムということになります。
Storing human memories on a computer. Does this have anything to do with the artificial intelligence revolution? The whispers turned into a low roar. I see. So even after her death, Kurisu's research was being carried on posthumously. Of course, maybe it was natural that that would be the case. It was the basic theory for time leaping, which I proved myself, even if I could never prove it to anyone else in the Alpha World line. My memories have been turned into data and stored on a computer. There was no doubt about that. And what Dr. Leskinin was talking about right now was the basic technology required for that process.
At present, we are attempting to apply
現
this
在
research to two
私
major
たちが
projects.
行っている
The
プロ
first
ジェ
is
クトは
medical treatment.
主に2つです。1つは医療分野への応用です。
So they're using that for medical applications. And secondly, the slide on the project had changed.
For this application, we've been
こちらは
cooperating with the
精神生理学研究所と
Institute.
共同で行っているプロジェクトです。
By passing data from a computer through the
コンピューター
parahypocampo
に保存した記憶データを海馬傍回を通して再び元の脳に書き戻すというもので
Ah yes, Kurisu found a way not only to convert human memories into data and put them into storage, but also to reverse said process.
Incredible!
Which was the final step of the time leap machine. Basically, you have a headset that has a special frequency that converts your memories into digital data, gets sent through the upgraded PhoneWave TBA, the time leap machine, and gets compressed through the large through something known as a Kerr black hole, which was part of time travel, by the way. Just go with it. goes out through the singularity and back into the decompressed and back into the human brain. And that's basically time leap theory in a nutshell. Someone who looked like a grad student in the front row shouted. Dr. Leskinen didn't seem particularly put off by the interruption. Maho continued her interpretation.
You don't believe it? I know how you feel.
信じがたいですか。その気持ちは理解できます。私も皆さんの立場であればそう言ったでしょう。
Incredible, more like revolutionary.
But let me just ask you.
しかし、この研究に私たちは手応えを感じています。これが実用化できれば、どんなに素晴らしいことでしょう。
It would be very, very wonderful. It's a problem that the time leap machine doesn't exist on this world line, although for us that's probably for the best because the time machine is that CERN was after the Future Gadget Laboratory in the first place.
例えば、老化による記憶障害、あとはアルツハイマーなど、そうしたものへの対処療法が期待できます。
Symptomatic therapy. Let's take a look at this. Treatment intended not to cure the cause of a disease but to alleviate its symptoms and relieve pain. Painkillers and fever reducers are examples of symptomatic therapy. Or in the case of Rintaro Okabe, the medicine that he takes for his anxiety disorder that he now has as a result of Kurisu's tragic death.
患者の記憶をデータとして自動的にバックアップしていくのです。記憶が失われたとしても、その都度 PC にアクセスし、脳内にデータを再インストールすることが可能です。
That would only work if you actually had multiple backups of their memories just in case.
それによって忘却の進行を食い止められるのではないか。私たちはそう考えています。
Certainly an interesting theory.
最終的には海馬崩壊から PC 内の記憶データに常時アクセスできるようになるでしょう。
So basically downloading memory data straight from your PC directly into your brain. Kind of like the Matrix, only without a phone jack
脳
or
機能が
something.
失われた状態。例えば脳が激しく損傷したり萎縮してしまった場合などですが、そのような状態でも変わらず脳機能を維持できます。
I'm actually wishing I actually had a bag of popcorn here, although I doubt that eating snacks in a prestigious lecture such as this would probably certainly be frowned upon.
あたかも外部ストレージと同じように。
External storage. A data storage unit that can be detached from a computer or cell phone or other electronic device. Some examples include hard drives and flash memories, basically USB sticks. External hard drives are extremely useful at times. A strange feeling grips the hall. Part of it was shock and the feeling that they were witnessing the announcement of an incredible technology. Indeed, it is truly incredible. Part of it was skepticism that a system like this could ever actually work. Part of it was revulsion at the idea of playing around with a human brain like that. An excitement born of all these things passed from one member of the crowd to another. Dr. Leskinin raised his hand to encourage questioners.
I'm seeing some of you have questions before.
どうやら
We move to our second
2つ
project.
目のプロジェクトをお話しする前に質問を受け付けないといけないようですね。
I believe that will be it for this episode of Let's Play Steins Gate. That first part of the lecture was rather lengthy, but we're going to take a bit of an intermission here, and when we return, adventurers, we shall see if we cannot participate in this particular moment of question time before the next stage of the artificial intelligence lecture. As always, until next we meet, adventurers,